Democracy, humanity's proudest invention. The system, we're told, gives every voice equal weight, every citizen a share of power. One person, one vote, the antidote to tyranny. But what if, somewhere along the way, democracy stopped being just a political system and became something else entirely? Not a metaphorical business, a literal one, complete with customers, marketing strategies, quarterly revenue goals, and shareholders. Except you're not one of those shareholders. The profits don't flow to the people casting ballots. They flow to those who've learned how to monetize your hopes, your fears, and your beliefs. The ancient dream of democracy was born in Athens. It was messy, imperfect, and exclusive. Citizens, meaning adult males who owned property, gathered in open assemblies to vote directly on laws. There were no campaign ads, no focus groups, no armies of consultants whispering about optics. Decisions were public, face-to-face, and brutally honest. But as societies grew, democracy evolved from direct participation into representation. And with that change came something new, a marketplace of influence, a space where power could be bought, shaped, and sold. Those who could pay the most began to dominate the shelves of public opinion. By the 19th century, this marketplace had become industrialized. Elections required money for printing pamphlets, staging rallies, and buying newspaper endorsements. Yet the true revolution arrived in the 20th century, when mass media collided with mass politics. Radio and television turned democracy into performance. The turning point came in 1960, during the first televised U.S. presidential debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. For the first time, appearance mattered as much as argument. Kennedy's charisma and calm on camera won over millions. Nixon's tired face and nervous demeanor cost him dearly. Those listening on the radio believed Nixon had won. Those watching on TV thought Kennedy triumphed. That night, politics learned a lesson it would never forget. Image sells. From that moment forward, campaigns would treat voters less like citizens and more like consumers. In the new marketplace of democracy, presentation wasn't just important, it was everything. The customers were the voters, but the revenue? That came from donors, corporations, and special interests, the true shareholders of modern democracy. In this new political marketplace, the business model spread across the globe. Each democracy built its own version of the industry, a fusion of marketing, psychology, and data science, disguised as civic engagement. In the United Kingdom, the transformation took root during the Thatcher era. Political campaigns began mirroring corporate marketing, borrowing tactics straight from advertising agencies. In India, the world's largest democracy, elections turned into massive data operations. Parties now employ analytics firms to divide hundreds of millions of voters into microgroups, tailoring promises and imagery to each segment, the same way e-commerce companies target consumers with ads. In Brazil, WhatsApp became the front line of persuasion, a digital battleground where carefully crafted messages spread through private groups like wildfire. Campaigns learned that viral emotion was more valuable than truth, and that outrage was more contagious than optimism. The platform didn't just connect people, it became an engine of influence. The tools may differ, but the logic remains the same. If votes are the currency of power, then political success depends on marketing, branding, and audience acquisition. And once that market forms, it behaves like any other, with reoccurring sales cycles and predictable peaks in profit. Unlike ordinary companies, political campaigns don't sell you something once and move on. They sell you the same product again and again, every election season. Each cycle triggers a surge of spending, consultants hired, ads purchased, data collected, and narratives manufactured. The system resets itself every few years, feeding an ecosystem of professionals whose livelihoods depend on keeping democracy in perpetual motion. Imagine it like the fashion industry. Every season brings a new collection, new slogans, fresh policy themes, updated villains and heroes. But beneath the glossy surface, little changes. The promises are temporary, designed to be replaced when the next cycle begins. The business of democracy thrives on planned obsolescence. Money is the bloodstream of this machine. On paper, democracy promises equality. The vote of a billionaire should carry no more weight than that of a janitor. In reality, money buys the microphone. The louder your wallet, the stronger your voice. Lobbyists are the purest symbol of this system. They are the brokers who translate financial power into political results, turning campaign donations into laws, tax breaks, and contracts. In the United States alone, lobbying has grown into a $4 billion a year industry, larger than the GDP of several small nations. And in many countries, the boundary between lobbying and bribery is little more than a legal illusion. Even the language of politics has been rewritten by the marketplace. Parties no longer speak of vision, they talk about branding. Campaigns discuss messaging and conversion rates. Politicians measure market share and demographics and track how many undecided voters their ads convert, just like a company analyzing customer retention. Policies themselves are now products to be tested. Before a bill is introduced, it's run through focus groups, analyzed for emotional resonance, and refined for market appeal. Decisions about when to act or what to propose no longer rest solely on national need. They depend on polling data and projected voter response. The result is a democracy that no longer listens to the will of the people, but rather curates it. Public opinion becomes a managed commodity, adjusted, segmented, and sold back to its owners in a more profitable form. When democracy becomes a business, the flow of money doesn't just shape campaigns, it shapes entire economies. Once financial interests intertwined with political survival, policymaking begins to resemble investment strategy. Candidates backed by banks, energy conglomerates, or tech firms learn quickly which issues to champion and which to quietly bury. If your biggest donors profit from fossil fuels, your enthusiasm for climate reform will mysteriously cool. If your campaign depends on hedge funds, financial regulation becomes a delicate subject. What looks to the public like ideological debate often hides as pure economics, boardroom decisions disguised as political philosophy. This structure shifts the balance of power. Citizens may vote, but investors govern. The policy pipeline becomes a transaction, influence in exchange for capital. And while the citizen's reward is a symbolic ballot, the donor's reward is measurable: contracts, tax breaks, subsidies, and access. It's a system that runs on the illusion of choice, a free market where the most expensive ideas always seem to win. The irony is that this business model has made democracy both durable and dangerously hollow. Durable because as long as it stays profitable, it keeps running smoothly. Elections take place, ads flood screens, and money circulates like oxygen through the veins of the political body. But hollow because its survival no longer depends on trust or participation. In fact, disillusionment can be profitable. A disengaged public still clicks, watches, and reacts, and outrage is a far stronger motivator than hope. The darker the headlines, the higher the engagement rates. Negative campaigning works not in spite of its toxicity, but because of it. Division is no longer a symptom of democratic decay, it's a feature of the business model. Fear sells better than reason, and every argument online is another microtransaction in the attention economy. Nowhere is this more visible than in the rise of big tech. In the 20th century, political marketing was broadcast, one message to millions. In the 21st, it's personalized, millions of messages to millions of individuals, each custom-tailored by algorithms that know your anxieties better than you do. Social media companies aren't neutral platforms anymore. They're the main distributors in democracy's new supply chain. Their incentive is engagement, not truth, not unity, but clicks. The longer you stay, the more ads you see, the more data they collect. That data fuels the next round of campaigns, feeding a feedback loop between politicians and platforms. Outrage keeps people online, algorithms amplify it, and politicians exploit it. Democracy's business model and Silicon Valley's profit model have fused into one. This merger creates an invisible marketplace of influence, where your emotions are the commodity. Your likes, shares, and reactions become political currency, traded in real time to optimize persuasion. The candidate who best manipulates digital emotion wins not just hearts and minds, but ad revenue too. In this new ecosystem, virality replaces vision, and truth is whatever drives the most engagement. And as this cycle deepens, the barriers to entry rise. Established politicians have the brand recognition, the marketing budget, and the institutional networks to stay on top, the same way legacy corporations dominate their industries. New political movements, the startups of democracy, struggle to break through the noise. When one finally does, through authenticity, charisma, or genuine public momentum, the system reacts predictably. It's either crushed, co-opted, or absorbed. The establishment protects its market share. The result is a democracy that still looks alive. Elections happen, debates air, ballots count, but its inner workings have shifted from public service to private enterprise. The free exchange of ideas has been replaced by a marketplace of attention, where visibility is bought, not earned. What was once a civic act, voting, debating, participating, has become a consumer experience. The people remain the audience, but they are no longer the authors of the story. In the end, democracy's greatest illusion is not that everyone's voice matters equally, it's that the system still belongs to the people. But when votes are packaged like products, and belief is just another commodity, democracy begins to look less like self-government and more like a subscription service, when you keep renewing without realizing the price keeps rising. The true shareholders of this system, the billionaires, corporations, and political dynasties, don't need an informed electorate. They need a compliant audience. As long as the public keeps watching, arguing, and choosing between the same two brands every few years, the machinery keeps humming. The marketing changes, the promises change, but the balance sheet stays the same. Even the crises become profitable. A scandal drives viewership. A war fuels defense contracts. A financial collapse reshapes markets in predictable ways. Outrage and despair are not threats to the system, they are growth sectors. The more the public loses faith, the more dependent it becomes on the very institutions that engineered the disillusionment. That's the genius and the trap of turning democracy into an industry. But systems built on illusion don't last forever. History shows that every empire, every republic, every corporate dynasty eventually reaches a point where the cost of maintaining the lie outweighs the profits. The Roman Republic fell when the Senate served wealth instead of the people. Weimar Germany collapsed when money and power became more persuasive than morality. Each time, the warning signs were ignored until the market of belief crashed. We stand at a similar crossroads. Democracy isn't dying in a sudden coup, it's being quietly repackaged. Efficiency replaces transparency. Convenience replaces accountability. Voting apps, algorithmic news, AI-generated campaigns, all innovations that promise progress while tightening control. The question is no longer whether democracy will survive, but in what form, as a living principle or as a polished brand. Yet, there's still a choice, a real one, because unlike most markets, this one can be disrupted from within. The most dangerous act in a system built on manipulation is awareness. When you understand how your emotions are used, how your data is sold, and how your attention is monetized, you become unprofitable to those who thrive on your ignorance. Knowledge is the ultimate rebellion. Every election, every headline, every trending topic is a transaction, and you, the citizen, have more power than you think. Withdraw your emotional investments from outrage. Refuse to buy into narratives sold by the highest bidder. Support transparency, question funding sources, and treat politics not as entertainment but as accountability. Because when the customers of democracy demand refunds, the shareholders panic. And when the people remember they were never meant to be the audience, but the authors, the business model breaks. So the next time someone says democracy is failing, remember, systems don't fail by accident. They fail when they stop serving the people and start serving themselves. The future of democracy won't be decided in boardrooms or campaign headquarters. It'll be decided in the minds of those who finally stop buying the illusion. If this made you question the system, good. That's the first step toward reclaiming it. History has always belonged to those who stopped being customers and started being citizens.